what I understand, this is the story of the people who try to steal the Death Star plans, which drives the plot of A New Hope. I wonder if they'll succeed. I haven't felt this much suspense since Titanic.
So you're sending the movie because it's a prequel and you know what has to happen. Jeremy, you send the prequel trilogy. I don't remember you bringing that up at all then, so why is it a problem only now? Besides, I still think there's tension because of all the new characters this film introduces. I remember not being sure if any of them would survive, and I was in fact surprised when they all died. Like, I didn't think Disney of all companies would allow that.
Introducing Galen Erso, a hero so heroic that he's never mentioned once in the original Star Wars trilogy. Thanks for building the Death Star all f***ed up so we could destroy it, dick.
Okay, I'll give you that maybe he should have been mentioned in A New Hope, even though I can't really think of any moment where they could have done that. But why would they mention Galen in episodes 5 and 6? The Death Star was already destroyed by then, so what would be the purpose of talking about him? And none of the main characters in those movies even knew Galen personally, so...
It's not a Star Wars breakfast without some mysterious blue liquid.
Sending a Star Wars movie for including blue milk.
Why does this ship land so fucking far away from the home it's here to investigate? Why do movies keep doing this? You're in a fucking spaceship. Just land 20 feet from the house.
This is meant as intimidation. Krennic is threatening Galen to come back and finish the Death Star.
Is there any reason why Galen needs to wait for these guys to walk to his farm so far away? Why doesn't he already run away? If his daughter can get away, he can too.
Galen is distracting Krennic so his wife and daughter can escape. He's the man that they want.
Having already seen this movie, I kinda wouldn't mind if instead of jumping ahead in time, they'd have just stayed on young Jin. Growing Old with Forrest Whitaker, a Star Wars story.
Are you suggesting watching Jen's childhood would be more interesting than this film? Then we don't get the awesome Darth Vader hallway scene.
In-movie Stormtrooper toys are much larger and cooler than any of the I got to play with back in the 80s.
Jeremy sends something he likes cliche.
Considering that they had this hiding place that the discount Stormtroopers can't find, was there really any reason anyone had to die?
No, there wasn't. Lyra was just too emotionally distracted and wanted to get rid of Krennic so Galen would have to leave. That's the reason she dies.
Planet killer! That's what he called it!
This is essentially the fourth of 8 movies in the Star Wars franchise that focuses on either the Death Star or something like the Death Star. Get your head out of your Death Star, Star Wars.
Yeah, but it makes sense in this case. This movie is focusing on the very first Death Star from A New Hope, and you literally admitted in the very first sin that you know what this movie's plot is. It's about the rebel spy stealing it to give to Princess Leia. So why are you upset about this?
Come on, movie. I know we have a lot of characters to meet and little time to do so, but how am I supposed to keep up with Ring of Kafren, Jeddah, Wobani, and this place? God damn, this movie changes planets faster than a Guardians of the Galaxy film.
It's not that complicated, my guy. Kafrene and Wobani are there for brief scenes to develop the story, Jeddah's important for later, and Yavin 4 is the base of the Rebel Alliance. Didn't you send A New Hope already? Don't you know that? I'm gonna send that video very soon.
What is this? It's a chance for you to make a fresh start.
We like using prisoners for make-or-break missions. In fact, we're also waiting on Sean Connery to finish getting a haircut while we dethaw Sly Stallone, and they'll meet up with Jason Statham for transport here.
I don't know what movies Jeremy is referencing here, so let's not focus on that. Instead, let's talk about the fact that he's questioning why the rebellion would ask a prisoner for help. Jyn is the daughter of Galen Erso, and she can talk to Saw Gerrera, who has Galen's message about the Death Star. This information is plainly stated in the film, and CinemaSins somehow missed it.
This is Captain Cassian Andor, Rebel Intelligence.
AKA Discount Han Solo.
2017 CinemaSins hasn't seen Andor, where I would not call Cassian Discount Han Solo. Jokes aside, even ignoring the spin-off show, how is Cassian like Han at all? Like, I don't see a connection between them whatsoever.
Also, I'm happy Mon Mothma is in this, and they got the same actress from Revenge of the Sith to play her, but where the f*** was she in A New Hope? This is kind of confusing, since she was the main rebel leader in Return of the Jedi, where they're building yet another Death Star. But as you know, that's way down the line from A New Hope.
She was evacuated before the Battle of Yavin, just in case the assault on the Death Star failed. Considering she's one of the founding members of the Rebel Alliance, losing her would shoot a giant hole in the rebellion's foundation.
We're hoping that he will help us locate your father and return him to the Senate for testimony.
You gotta love when someone walks in on cue, just to show they're in the movie, and bridging continuity between the prequels and this one. That's basically his role here.
And so we can also see him going to tell Leia to grab the Death Star plans when Rogue One succeeds their mission.
You find him, you kill him.
Boss Dude tells Cassian to kill Galen if they find him, the guy that designed the supposed planet-killing weapon. You don't want to ask that guy a few questions, maybe? Interrogate him?
I mean, I agree that's a better option, but I do sympathize with the rebels here. What if after they capture Galen, the Empire comes after them to break him out? And if the Empire doesn't have him, then they most likely don't finish the Death Star, which Cassian's informant called a planet killer.
Trust goes both ways.
But neither of you trust each other, even a little bit. This is one of those things you say that sounds cool but makes no fucking sense. He's not trusting you, nor is he asking you to trust him.
He sort of is asking her to trust him. Jin was told that if she helps the rebels, then they'll set her free.
Ah, frightening CGI decisions. Also, you couldn't find a guy who looks like Grand Moff Tarkin. You found someone who looks enough like Mon Mothma. And sure, she was in Revenge of the Sith too, but that doesn't mean you can't go on a casting call for new Peter Cushings.
I almost want to Sydney for double dipping, but dang it, I'll be nice and remove one because I absolutely agree with you. This started the trend of bringing dead actors back with CGI that culminated in The Flash's terrible ending.
This fucking mind-reading Jabba ripoff with a dozen tentacle penises.
How is Bor Gullet like Jabba in any way?
Poor Gullet can feel your thoughts.
That's pretty insanely useful, but I'm wondering, how did Saw end up hiring Bor Gullet? Or did he just come with the cave?
Asking irrelevant questions.
Fried this.
Jeremy points things out on the screen cliche.
You just watch yourself.
Callback to A New Hope is callback.
Knowing how often you reuse running gags, this sin has no weight.
What do you know about kyber crystals?
My father, he said they powered the Jedi's lightsabers.
Is it just me, or are the Kyber crystals this movie's midichlorians? In other words, things that rob you of the mystery of Star Wars.
No, it isn't. You're saying this as if Rogue One invented kyber crystals, but that's not true. We saw them in the Clone Wars TV series, specifically in Season 5 from 2012, 4 years before this film came out. Heck, Saw Gerrera was a character introduced in that same series, so clearly this movie is taking the TV shows into account.
Who are they?
The Guardians of the Wills.
Unless you have subtitles, the names of these things in movies are totally confusing. I heard this as Guardians of the Wills in a movie theater, but apparently it's Guardians of the Wills, and now I've got to figure out what the f*** a will is. Oh, it's the Force? Well,
Not exactly. The wills are single-celled organisms that were the will of the Force, influencing events by communicating with midichlorians and living beings.
This scene does a good job not letting you know where anyone really is, and an even better job making you not care.
Jeremy says this as if it's factual, even though when I watched this scene, I never got that impression.
Did you know that wasn't me?
This is almost remove as sin-worthy, but this is a disobedient f***ing droid right here. And how the f*** did K2SO know where Jin and Cassian were?
Probably because of all the explosions that were happening around them. I think that'd be hard to miss.
Stormtrooper suddenly has alarmingly great aim when it comes to hitting a Stormtrooper being used as human shield.
But wouldn't it make more sense to send the movies for Stormtroopers missing? And as much as I like the meme, they've always been able to hit their targets. Remember the opening scene of A New Hope?
Go back to the ship. Wait for my call.
Oh, now he obeys, after Ex Machina disobeying and saving their lives.
Misusing Deus Ex Machina again.
Can you get us to Saw Gerrera?
No, but all his soldiers who were eavesdropping nearby just now can. Jeddah is nothing if not a place for convenient timing.
Weren't these guys already here when the battle happened? Do you think they would have left immediately?
Hollow porn.
Jeremy points things out on the screen. Again.
Glad this movie gave him the oxygen problem to pad the runtime from 2 hours 14 minutes to 2 hours 15 minutes. I mean, phew, right?
Glad this video included this sin to pad the runtime from 17 minutes 21 seconds to 17 minutes 29 seconds. I mean, phew, right?
We call it the Death Star. There is no better name, and the day is coming soon when it will be unleashed.
Well, it'll be unleashed in mere minutes on this very city, so pre-recorded Galen is prescient as f*** here. On accident.
Good to know. Now, why was that something wrong with this movie?
I've placed a weakness deep within the system.
Movie tries to retroactively excuse the Death Star's ludicrous weak spot, but fails because that weak spot is still so stupidly obvious someone in the Empire should have noticed that long before Luke trusted the Force. Also, Galen Erso created the small shaft that Luke will one day fire his 1 in a million shot into, winning the day for the Rebels. But if he had this kind of power in creating the Death Star, surely he could have figured out a way that would not have required such long odds.
Yeah, these two sins are back to back and seriously contradict each other. First you say the weak spot is so obvious the Empire should have seen it, and then you say that it's too small for Luke to one day shoot. Like, which is it? And while I don't have a rebuttal for the second sin, I'll say this for the first one. The hole is only 2 meters wide. How would the Empire have seen it? And I think Gale would have found ways to prevent them from finding it in the blueprints, like maybe erasing it.
There's literally no reason for the Death Star to cause a total eclipse on Jeddah before annihilating Jeddah City. Cool shot that in no way makes sense.
In no way? That sentence in no way makes sense.
You'll need the plans. The structural plans for the Death Star to find the reactor.
Why didn't Galen go ahead and send the Death Star plans to Saw? Yeah, the plans are on some other planet. But why not at least send a drawing or something? If he could get this message to Saw, surely he could get the plans or a drawing to him.
Okay, so I made sure to not watch the Birdman's video on this movie so it doesn't influence mine. Any sins that are similar to his video are purely coincidental. But dang it, I rewatched it after finishing mine, and he had an amazing point for this particular sin that I originally skipped. So screw it, here it is.
You misunderstand. Galen didn't design the exhaust port on the Death Star, only the instability of the core, which the exhaust port leads to. You're asking for schematics that Galen simply doesn't have, which is why they need to get to those plans in the first place. Not only that, if Urso did know the schematics by heart and gave some sort of drawing in a message, think about what would happen if that message fell into the hands of the Empire. They'd have removed the weakness of the Death Star and it would have never gotten destroyed.
Somehow this is possible while this is also going on and nobody important dies in this scene.
Doesn't Saw die? Isn't he important?
You know, Hollywood, not everything exciting has to occur at the very last second in order to be exciting.
Yes, it does. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as fun to watch. I explained it in my solo video.
Think about the serendipity here. The rebels find Jyn in a prison on some distant planet, take her to the rebel headquarters, and send Cassian with her to go find Saw. Then the Empire tests the Death Star on the very planet where Saw is. He shows her the Galen Erso recording, and luckily Cassian was able to totally bullshit his way out of his cell to save Jyn just in time to fly off the planet before they die.
This just sounds like you're narrating what's happening and calling it a sin. Like, what's so ridiculous about all of that? I do have one note, though, being when you implied the Death Star blowing up Jedha was convenient. They knew the Saw and his rebels were there, so this was their way of destroying them and testing the weapon at the same time.
Suicide by stubbornly refusing to leave with the others. I feel nothing. He had his chances.
Yeah, but if you've seen this man, I don't think he would have made it very far.
Your work exceeds all expectations,
said the studio to the CGI firm after signing off on this totally not real-looking Grand Moff Tarkin abomination.
Okay, I agree with you, the CGI here looks bad, but you've already seen it twice. Once was enough.
How are there not at least 6 people dead after Krennic just yelled fire?
Because Galen walked right in front of them before they could shoot? I feel like that's obvious if you watched the film.
Get the squadron leader on. Get him on now. They're already engaged, sir.
Then several seconds of them flying through the mountain peaks before they were actually on site and engaged. But whatever, like this movie gives a shit about time.
Maybe because these scenes are happening at the same time?
Also, didn't Bodhi tell Cassian a few moments ago that getting through these canyons was tough because the Empire had sensors and shit all through it? Why were they able to fly through here without any alarms going off?
There were alarms, you doofus. You're just straight up lying.
Get him on now. They're already engaged, sir.
Jyn's reunion with her dad is prolonged by a spaceship's exhaust, because this movie stretches out every single moment 2 to 5 seconds longer than it should. Hopefully she gets to him just before he dies. Oh good, she did. Phew.
Narration.
Could the Empire get any more Sauron?
If there's a giant eye in that tower, then I'd agree with you.
Yep, this movie's gonna use the all-red helmeted Imperial Guard dudes, even though A New Hope and Empire both had none of them. Apparently just before you got to know him, Vader was using these red dudes as bodyguards on the regular.
There wasn't any point for them to appear in episodes 4 and 5. This is Vader's castle, which I feel like would require heavy security. Not to mention he is currently inside a Bacta tank with literally no arms and legs. He's exposed, so having these guards here makes sense.
Its power to create problems has certainly been confirmed.
Damn, Darth Vader's beginning to sound as bad as Bugs Bunny without Mel Blanc. Which is weird, since this is before A New Hope. It's almost like the actor doing his voice is 40 years older now. So weird.
Yes, James Earl Jones sounds older, but he still gives off that booming voice that we all know and love. And it's way better than any AI voice Disney will use now that he's gone.
Until you can assure the Emperor that Galen Erso has not compromised this weapon in any way.
Especially in any obvious and easily detectable way that a child would spot instantly, like gas vents that lead back to a main engine.
Again, how would they have seen the exhaust port? It's the size of a womp rat.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director.
This is a little known fact, but Darth Vader spent some time as James Bond from 1960 to 1962.
Sending this line.
You're asking us to invade an Imperial installation based on nothing but hope.
Nice line, but no. She's got information about the installation's weakness, as well as legit experience versus Imperial troops, and a blind Force ninja for a friend.
But why would they trust her or Galen? They have every reason not to. The rebels have to essentially go to a planet hoping that they're right.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Yeah, just like I've always believed for this entire movie. Get with it, you non-hoping pieces of shit.
She is literally quoting Cassian, who was quoting a friend from Gorman for saying this exact line. This is Jyn making this conclusion now. That's called a character arc.
I'm not sure 4 of us is quite enough.
How many do we need?
It's kind of amazing that the rebellion didn't think to send a small group of volunteers to do exactly what Jyn is going to do. They have an impounded Imperial ship, 2 Imperial defectors, and they always fight when the numbers are against them. So what did they have to lose by sending some dedicated fighters?
Some dedicated fighters? And again, they don't trust Galen Erso, the guy who built the Death Star.
But I do. I believe you.
For no reason at all other than, what the hell, the script says I do, so let's do this.
Because he's come to trust her and see her as an ally for the rebellion after all she's done. Now that I think about it, didn't something similar happen in Andor with Luthen Rael, where the rebellion didn't believe what he was saying about the Death Star, but Cassian did? I mean, I understand why in both cases, but it's still kind of funny.
Your friend, the Jedi.
Yes, I will send for him.
You will need someone you can trust.
I would trust her with my life.
I thought Princess Leia was on her way to Alderaan at the beginning of A New Hope, and Vader boarded their ship around the time they reached Tatooine. So sending the plans with R2-D2 to give to Obi-Wan was a Hail Mary. But here, apparently, she was sent to see Obi-Wan before the rebellion even knew Rogue One went on their unsanctioned mission.
You probably should have rewatched A New Hope first, because Leia literally says in her message to Obi-Wan that she planned on going to Tatooine to pick him up and bring him to Alderaan.
I regret that I am unable to present my father's request to you in person, but my ship has fallen under attack, and I'm afraid my mission to bring you to Alderaan has failed.
Saw Gerrera used to say one fighter with a sharp stick.
Shut up. After everything I've sat through, you mean to tell me these men need a Miracle on Ice style pep talk prior to their battle? This is the moviest movie bullshit this movie has tried to movie on my ass, and it makes me angry. And I'm gonna start ranting soon.
Sending inspirational speeches? Wow. Next thing you'll tell me is that you send the president's speech in Independence Day.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
Quiet.
Oh, you, movie.
Sending a Star Wars movie for being a Star Wars movie.
Intercepted Imperial transmission, Mom. Rebels on Scarif.
Even though this proves nothing and the rebellion was dead set against going to Scarif, they send everyone there now because Rebels of the Rebels decided to defy orders?
Yes. Admiral Raddus in particular was all about sending troops to Scarif, and he's the one leading the fleet above the planet.
Scarif? They're going to Scarif.
BB-8 and K2SO have replaced both of you in our hearts. You aren't the droids we're looking for. Move along.
Hold the frick on. Did you just say that BB-8 has replaced R2-D2, the baddest droid in the galaxy? That's worth a few extra.
Get close, Red 5. Where are you going?
Jeez, archive footage now? So you've got CGI plastered over other actors posing as the original actors? You have new actors replacing old actors, and now you're just reusing old footage? What was the deciding factor on all these?
Let's look at these three things one by one. First, CGI being plastered over other actors' faces. Disney was just too scared to cast someone who didn't look like the original characters. It seems like they wanted Tarkin and Leia to look as close to their appearances in A New Hope as possible, even though we fans would have understood if they had just recasted them. It's been 40 years. Second, recasting. There is only one recast in the whole film, and that's Mon Mothma. And you earlier said you're aware Genevieve O'Reilly already played her in Revenge of the Sith, although her scenes were deleted. And she looks close enough to the original Mon Mothma, and I'm guessing they just wanted to give her a chance to be on screen. Third, reusing footage. I think this one is pretty dang clever, since these pilots were there in A New Hope, so obviously they would have been here during the Battle of Scarif. And it's not like they need him to say new dialogue, they just need him to say generic space battle stuff. That's what the deciding factors were.
Red 5! I need help!
Alas, poor Red 5, I knew you not.
Sending this cool nod to the original Red 5 before Luke took over a few days later.
Stardust. That's it.
How do you know that?
I know because it's me.
Yeah, but what happens if you're not the person looking for the plans? What if you die? You mean to tell me that Galen left all this to chance? This further illustrates why it was so stupid he didn't send the plans along with Bodhi in the first place, or a copy of them, or at least a general thing to look for when attacking the Death Star.
I was with you until you said at least a general thing to look for. Can you give an example as to what exactly that would be? The only thing I can think of is a trench, but the Death Star actually has 18 of them. And again, the hole is the size of a womp rat, so giving them the plans is the best idea so they can locate exactly where it is.
You can still send the plans to the fleet. If they open the shield gate, you can broadcast from the tower.
Jesus, the radio and satellite in this finale is f***ing confusing. With all the stuff Jyn and Cassian are doing in tandem with what Bodhi's doing, this conflict will warp your mind into jelly.
Can you explain why this stuff is confusing? Normally when you claim something, you kind of need to back it up.
But C-3PO got at least 8 movies.
Sending this scene.
Why is she wearing Deadpool-style double swords on her back? Have we seen her use that kind of thing at all in this movie? Yeah, she snuck in here in some bounty hunter droid costume thing, but still. You had your heroine wearing this for the climax and never once let her use them? That's a sin for the costume designer, I think.
Those aren't swords. They're the batons that the Imperials use to help ships land, very similar to what you see at airports.
The master switch! It's out there at that console!
I'm going!
I only send Jeremy's laugh when it's extra bad, and it definitely was here.
Just look at the size of that hard drive, whatever it is thing. And sure, the Death Star plans are probably a huge file, but Jesus, Leia puts them inside R2-D2 later, so why'd the Empire need this much storage? This is like the Rebel Alliance having moved on to MP3s, while the Empire is still on 8 tracks.
But this is sent up to the Rebel Alliance, who then put in a disc to place inside of R2.
Guys, I'm having a hard time figuring out which character is blind in this scene.
Jeremy doesn't understand that Sharut is calling on the Force, which allows him to pass through this battlefield without a scratch.
This is for you, Galen.
I mean, you made this way too hard for us, but, you know, good job, I guess.
Jeremy yells at the screen cliche.
Reset antenna alignment. Antenna align.
How did it get misaligned? Was it somehow hit during this battle by a wayward X-Wing that misaligned it but didn't actually damage it? Do they have to realign it every time they want to send a message out of here?
I feel like you answered your own question when you mentioned an X-Wing probably hit it.
Die with the rebellion.
Dead guy, Ex Machina.
No!
Admiral, receiving transmission from Scarif.
Now, if they got this transmission, then why didn't everybody in the rebellion have the Death Star plans? Maybe they said only this ship could receive the transmission, but Jyn used a satellite to beam these things into space. Anybody could have gotten them, right?
You don't think Jyn could have put a target in there to have it aimed directly at that one ship? Why would the satellite not have this ability? We're talking about a universe with insanely advanced technology.
Well, will you look at that? Hoisted with his own Death Star.
Yes, we can see that. It's called irony. Now, why is that a sin?
Movie rips off the sit on a beach and wait for the sweet incoming death scene from Deep Impact.
Arbitrary movie reference.
The Rebel flagship is disabled, my lord, but has received transmissions from the surface.
Prepare a boarding party.
Yes, prepare a boarding party for the Rebel flagship, but by all means, allow a small ship to fly out of it later.
Maybe Vader thought he could take them out before that happened? I mean, he almost did.
Is this scene with Darth Vader badass and awesome? Yes. Does it contradict basically every physical movement Vader made in the original trilogy? Yes.
Okay, so Jeremy does at least remove a few sins after this, so don't get too mad.
Still though, this Vader scene, holy
But still, I think the contradiction can simply be chalked up to different times these movies were made. The original trilogy came out in the 70s to 80s, while this is from the 2010s. Obviously, things would be different.
Seriously, why are there no Imperial ships around to stop this? It's like everybody disappeared. A minute ago, they had ships blasting the Rebel flagship, but I guess they were told to vanish once Vader boarded it. By this point, everyone should know of the magnet hide a ship inside bigger ships, and do everything they can to prevent it from leaving.
See my explanation 2 sins ago.
Also, I guess when Bail told Leia to go find Obi-Wan, she decided to put herself in danger just in case the rebels were able to find the Death Star plans. Why does she have to do everything? Why can't there be somebody else in charge of the plans while she goes to find Obi-Wan? I think the connection between this and A New Hope is a bit jagged.
Bail said himself that he trusts Leia with his life, and she's been part of the rebellion in secret for a while now. Again, we're talking about the Death Star plans. These need to get to the rebellion as quickly as possible.
Hope.
Ah, f*** you, movie. Hope, 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 hope. Say, do you remember the first movie was called A New Hope? Hope, hope, Bob Hope, Hope Solo.
Sending a Star Wars movie for being a Star Wars movie. Next thing you'll tell me is that you'll send the opening crawl in every movie. Oh, wait.